Assemblywoman Deborah Glick, thanks for joining us today.
Very nice to have this opportunity.
Now, you're chair of the Assembly Higher Education Committee, and education issues have been really big this year. You have Common Core, you had In Bloom, you had some other issues. But in terms of higher education specifically, what has gotten done so far? What got passed as part of the state budget?
Well, we did increase for the first time in 14 years, the top TAP award. TAP is the Tuition Assistance Program. And it was at $5,000. It's now at $5,165, which is a nice step, but a small step. And the real problem with higher education in general is that the expenses, even at the public universities, are rising so quickly that it is putting it further out of reach of more students, even if they are working or middle-class students. And the costs of higher ed are galloping far in advance of inflation. And much of it is going to administrative costs. Now they'll say, well, it's administrative costs have been held, but there are more administrators and more adjunct professors. There are not as many full-time professors based on the expansion of the student body. More students are taking longer to graduate, and schools are being criticized for not having graduation rates that keep pace. But in fact, the reality is that students have to work, so they can't carry a full course load. So, we have concerns about that. We have added money in this budget to the opportunity programs. We restored money to the SUNY and CUNY child care funds so that students can go to school and have child care centers where their children can be watched while they're in school. And we have added a very significant amount to their capital funds. Both SUNY and CUNY have older facilities that are in great need of repair or replacement. And so we were able to make a major capital investment this year. But there are larger issues of having, what is higher education? And the interaction between students and professors is very important. And the way of saving costs through adjuncts have to go to 2 or 3 different schools, particularly in CUNY, in order to piece together a living. And they're not as available to students for consultation. The growth of online learning is good for some students who are more advanced, but incoming students, new students, actually need the direct interaction. And those are, concerns that we're struggling with. And we haven't provided enough resources to our public universities.
And you describe a lot of these concerns you still have. There is still time in the session this year through the end of June or late June. Are there any particular bills that are a top priority for you in terms of higher education?
Well, one of the bills that we just had a hearing on, and I don't know that we'll advance a bill, but the hearing was on teacher certification. And while that's generally been a lower ed discussion, because these are college students, the certification, the Ed TPA, became a hot topic, and we had a lengthy hearing. The regents responded by creating a safety net that allows students who fail this particular part of a new certification requirement can take the existing certification, and if they pass that, they will get their certification. But it is our humble opinion that the rollout of the Ed TPA was flawed, and students this year should not be required to pay $300 for a test that they could not be adequately prepared for. Even though a significant number of students have passed it, there are so many concerns about the way in which the company briefed professors. They had to file and sign a non-disclosure form, and if they didn't, they had to leave. And at that point, how could they adequately inform and assist their students in figuring out how to address this new certification? So we're still on the discussion about how that gets addressed.
Sure. And you'd like to delay that for a year?
I'd like to say that students should not take $300 out of their pocket, pay a company for a certification exam that they may not have been, that took up an enormous amount of time during their student teaching, and may produce uneven results.
Is there support in the Senate for this change you'd like to see?
Well, we had a Senate sponsor, and I think there is some sense that the air has been taken out of the balloon, if you will, because the regents acted. And I thought they took a good step, but it wasn't a full step.
And are there any other key bills that maybe the Senate's passed, the Assembly hasn't, or vice versa? The Assembly's passed, you're waiting for this?
You know, the Higher Education Committee deals not just with higher education, but with licensed professions. And so that is always, after the budget, many of those bills come to the fore. We have been working with geologists. They've worked for years to gain licensure in the state of New York. And, certainly with more natural disasters, there are really clear problems involved in understanding the geology of New York State, mudslides, etc., and where it is proper to drill and not drill and so forth. And so we're likely to put that bill out. There is always conflicts with other licensed professions when there's a new license, and it's always hard to balance those things. But we think we've come to a good place, and we are likely to put that bill out of our committee in this current month at some point, and hopefully prior objections will have been resolved sufficiently. The architects are looking for some protection from frivolous lawsuits when they respond to a state of emergency, as there was in Sandy or Irene, to help localities determine whether structures are safe or not. And it would be a 90-day Good Samaritan protection for architects, and we're seriously looking at that.
Assemblywoman, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much.